Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. I have a debut thriller novel for you. This one is The Hideaway by Nikki Allen. Five strangers are selected for a free, all-expenses trip to a lush eco resort in Costa Rica. But when they arrive, their host, Hannah, a wellness influencer, is mysteriously detained elsewhere. Over text, they're encouraged to start on a wilderness hike to a local waterfall, but it soon spirals out of control when there's an accident, and they also lose the path back. Lost in the rainforest with night closing in, the group find themselves fighting to survive the terrain and each other. Nikki Allen is a journalist, copywriter, and therapist who was born in Holland and raised in the UK, where she still lives. This thriller is her debut novel and was inspired by real-life cases of tourists disappearing in the Costa Rican rainforest. Now, I kind of love that one of the characters in this book is a therapist, and I feel like in a nice way, Nikki Allen might be like taking the piss out of therapists just a little bit with her character, her therapist character. Or maybe people she's worked with. I don't know, but it was interesting that somebody had that career that she also kind of knows. Anyway, this book is in the third person, but the chapters alternate between the POV of different characters with their names at the top of the chapters. This is so that we can learn a little bit about the secrets and the backstories of each person. And it works okay. I don't think we really need the names at the top of the chapter when the characters are all pretty much always in the same place. They're always together, and the book is written in third person, so it's like you don't really need that chapter title to tell you this is about Scott, because it's going to be like, then Scott says, but that doesn't detract from the storytelling in any way either. It's just one of those little things. We learn in the early chapters that Hannah, who owns the Hideaway of the title, is a wealthy wellness influencer, and they've all been invited as the first guests at her retreat as a kind of opening publicity stunt, I guess. And they had to audition with videos about their stories. Each one has some kind of deep damage or trauma that Hannah is meant to help them with, and the retreat is meant to change the course of their lives. So they're all people who are a little bit fraught and that kind of thing. They all need deep healing. And this means that as readers, we get little insights into their motivations for being there, what their secrets are, and hints that some of them are there for less than honest reasons or maybe lied in their videos. And I feel like that's such great foreshadowing. When they're lost in the rainforest, the things that they know and the secrets and lies they told to get there sort of like slowly revealed and used to impact their coping skills in the environment. I like that the author didn't choose stock characters here, which, that happens in thrillers. The character development is maybe less important than the plot sometimes, which is fine. But here they feel like fairly well-rounded, well-realized. She's definitely thought them through. And that's great because it means that we're invested, we care about them, and we're sort of curious about what their stories are and why they're there. The book opens dramatically, which I really love when a thriller or a mystery has a good dramatic opening. I think it's really fun. I'm like, gets me right in there, And so we have a woman injured and dying in the rainforest. We don't know who she is. And the nature around her has scented her imminent demise and is like moving towards her to wait for her death and pick her bones clean. So it's quite dramatic. It sets the rainforest up as a place where the natural world swallows human beings whole, where life moves quickly to restore balance. And it lets us know that a murder has or will occur, raising those stakes nice and high really early on. The story gets moving from there pretty quickly, which is nice too. Within a few chapters, we're all lost in the rainforest. There were a few times in the middle of the book where I found them walking around and just surviving. And for me, that was a little bit dull. My interest was a bit more invested in the central mystery of who was secretly a bad guy and what happened to Hannah. And I kind of wanted to stick with that kind of story more than their survival efforts. I think it's a hard balance to strike, the realism of being lost and that being the most kind of imminent, most important problem. And then the thriller mystery plot needing to blend into that. And I think the author did really well with balancing that, especially as a debut novel. So it was an ambitious thing to try, and I think she pulled it off. One reason, though, that my interest in their survival journey was flagging was that they just made every dumb mistake that they could possibly make. Like, they go on a hike. They don't take a guide with them. There was a huge storm the night before. It's a country where they don't know the terrain. They deliberately don't take their phones. They don't check that the satellite phone is charged. Just all of these things. And when they realize the path back is lost, rather than staying where they are and waiting for help in the place where everyone knows that that's where they went, that would be the first location to look, they immediately start wandering around, going off the track, just making every silly decision. And like, in fairness, it's not that I felt like people wouldn't make those decisions. Like, people do these things in nature all the time. But it was just kind of irritating to read after a while, because at a certain point you just expected someone to be sensible. One thing that was laughable for me was the Australian character. I just wished at this point that people wouldn't write Australian characters if they're not Australian themselves. They're always so cringe. This one, we meet him and he says like "g'day" when he meets people. No one does that in real life. But worst of all, he's a park ranger. And he's supposed to have issues with being assertive. So that's supposed to explain away, a few things that he does. But immediately when they head off, a park ranger would be like, this is a bad idea. Like, that he just would. He doesn't ask any questions at this point. He doesn't prevent them from getting lost. Later on, he allows people to do things that would put them in danger or could potentially get them killed. I feel like it's written more as if he doesn't know what he should know as a park ranger. Also, park rangers often help find people who are lost. So I feel like he would have training for this exact situation that would kind of kick in even in spite of himself. The author at one point explains that the wilderness that he's used to is the desert, and that's supposed to explain why he doesn't say anything. But he's from Melbourne. And later she lets us know the name of the place where he works, and it's the Yarra region. So the national park that she's talking about is a rainforest, which just kind of shows you how, if you're not from Australia and you haven't traveled there extensively, you might not realize that we have like a big desert in the middle, but we have rainforest. We have pretty much all of the different things, like we have swamp, we have like, there's everything. It's a really big country. So yeah, maybe just kind of fact check to make sure that you have him somewhere where he would have no survival skills. I mean, it would make more sense if he was just from the suburbs, and had never been on a hike before or something. Even then, I feel like you'd have life skills just from living in Australia with, the normal wildlife that you come across in the suburbs. I don't know. So that kind of made me laugh a couple times, took me out of the moment a couple of times, and just maybe didn't make much sense. And because of that, I just think, just don't write Australian characters if you're not from there. Maybe if you're, I think sometimes people think they're like, oh, I know Australians really well, or it doesn't have to necessarily be Australia. I've seen it with other things too, where people will write a French character or something and they'll be really cartoonish, and just don't do that, just don't. Anyway, that's my little side tangent about that. On the whole, all of that aside, on the whole, this was a pretty good debut novel, honestly. And I do hope that the author writes more. I would be interested to see what she comes up with next, just like interesting premises or characters and things. I think the destination was a cool idea. It made for interesting tension and danger. And the I don't want to say too much and spoil anything, but the sort of mystery with, where is Hannah and why have they been sent on this hike? I feel like the solution to that was pretty satisfying and kind of interesting. So I was satisfied with the ending. I feel like thrillers in different locations or resort locations, like places people like to go on holidays and stuff too, it's just always appealing. It feels like a little bit of escapism in a way that I really like. And I liked finding out what each character was hiding. So yeah, this is a pretty good thriller read. especially for a debut. So I feel like I would recommend this to anyone that's had to work on a project with people you have nothing in common with. Do you know those like work retreat things where it's like you're just kind of stuck with a really mismatched bunch of people, and like one person's panicking and one person like is not pulling their weight, and then one person just feels sick the whole time or something. And I feel like, if you've been in that situation, I think you'll appreciate this book. It's a little laggy now and then in the middle, in my opinion. But overall, the premise is solid. The location's good. There's some intriguing mystery. The ending's satisfying. Yeah, it's a pretty good read. So thank you to PGC Books for the ARC of this book for review. Do you guys have any favorite books that are set in a location like this? Like not necessarily Costa Rica, but like a destination book. Do you guys like those? And I don't mean just thrillers. I mean, I know sometimes like Karen Swan wrote some really great sort of romantic stories that are in interesting locations. Do you guys like that kind of book? And do you have a pet peeve about characters when you're reading where it's just like a stereotype that's overused? Because I'm thinking of Australian characters here, but I bet, wherever you're from, you're going to be like, there's always this stereotype. And like, I want to know what that is. So tell me about that, what that is for you. And thank you for joining me for another video and hanging out with me. And I'll catch you guys in the next one.